I'd like to show you first the articulator that's been made by the Advanced Dental Designs Limited. It's a new articulator. It's a precision instrument. It split cast checks to approximately 5/10,000ths of an inch accuracy. And each instrument is interchangeable with the other instrument so that models mounted on one articulator can be transferred to another articulator, the AD square, I call it the AD square, can be transferred to another AD square articulator, and they're exactly the same. Let me go through the different parts of the articulator with you so that you can begin to understand the articulator and how to use it. Number one, I like the articulator from the standpoint of it's very easy to handle, it's lightweight, and you have good visibility from the posterior when your models are mounted on the articulator, so you can see the lingual cusp very, very nicely, and also it can be photographed nicely from the lingual. We have the two pins in the front. The back pin is a support pin so that when the articulator is turned open like this, the back pin will support the top of the articulator. When you're working with the articulator, mounting the models, the upper and lower members must be parallel to each other. And this is accomplished by the marks that are on the front pin. If you look closely, you can see that there's a green line here. That is the zero line. That is, when that line is flush with the top of the articulator, that will put the upper member and the lower member parallel to each other. And that's the line that you should set up when you're mounting your upper model to the articulator. Set the green line so that you just barely see the green line, and now your upper and lower members are parallel to each other. This is a third reference pointer here. In some of the systems, when you're mounting, some of the face bows, you sometimes are required to use a support here to record the third reference when you mount your lower model. That's the reason that this is here. This bottom of this, the third reference line here, is on the same plane as the axis of the articulator, so that you have your axis orbital plane. All models are mounted on articulators on the axis orbital plane. With the initial records that we take is done with a face bow. That's an estimated axis. Later in procedures on many patients, we must locate the actual hinge axis of the patient, and then we mount the models on the actual hinge axis of the patient. So they're all mounted, though, on the axis orbital plane. This instrument, as it is shown today, has a 1.5 millimeter analog. That is, I would use this on a patient that had a 1.5 millimeter immediate side shift. And these areas here, kind of like big rubber bands, activate and move the top of the articulator into the side shift. And at the same time, it holds the top of the articulator against the condyles. This is called a centric latch here. And again, when it's in place, it holds the top of the articulator down against the condyle balls. This is a little screw system that holds the centric latch open, and it works by turning it, and now then the centric latch will stay open, so that when you want to move to the sides, you would then move the centric lock, and the articulator now will move side to side, so that when you're checking the movement patterns of the patients, and you can see how the side shift is activated here, and the articulator then moves side to side a millimeter and a half. Now, you move to lock the articulator in centric again, you move the centric lock back up into position. The centric lock is held in position by a small magnet inside this area right here. And that's what holds that centric lock up when you put it in place. Now, one thing that's very, very important, to put the centric latch back up into position, must push down on the centric latch a little bit and then pull down here, and that will release the centric latch, and you can put the centric latch back into position. When you pull it down, it locks it down, but you can't push it up without first releasing here. And to release it, you've got to take the pressure off and then release it. If you don't want this activated, then you pull this down and turn it a quarter of a turn. And now then, it does not hold the centric latch down. When you mount your models on the articulator, you want the upper and lower members centered over each other. That centering is done by your centric lock here. And then put your centric latch in place, and that's going to hold the top of the articulator against the condyles. Once you have actually done a hinge axis on a patient, you will be measuring the angle of the eminence, and that's adjusted in red here. You can see the degrees here in measuring setting the angle of the eminence. And you have to release 2 Allen head screws to set that here and here. And so we release those, and now you can change the angle of the eminence. When you're mounting models on the articulator, you want to have the angle of the eminence set at least at 45, and if you set it even a little steeper, that's okay. And what that's doing is that when you mount your lower model, it will tend to hold the condyle in the fossa box here, the analog. And we can get a good look at the lower member with our condyle balls here. And our incisal guide table is, and we can shift to the incisal guide table as needed. And the top of the articulator, from underneath, you can see now you can get a good look at your analogs here and the fossa boxes. As I said, this is set up to be a 1.5 millimeter side shift in the fossa box here. Now put it back together again. And then we'll put the activators on. If you want to store the activator, I should point this out. If you take it off and you want to store them, there's a little hole here that will fit in. I want to center the top again, so I'm going to put the centric lock in place. The purpose of the test column is that as you use your articulator, you want to make sure that it maintains the accuracy. And the only way you know that is to have a test column, a split cast test column. Also, it's a possibility that one day you may drop the articulator. And so, again, if you drop the articulator or anything of that nature, you want to make sure of the accuracy of the instrument. So, okay, we want to put this upper mounting plate on, a metal mounting plate. And it fits very, very accurate. So you snap it into place and then use the large screw assembly here to lock it in position. And then we put the lower on. Again, it fits very, very accurately. Tighten it down good. And now with your pen, with the anterior pen, set it at 0. That is, so that you can just barely see the green line. That's the 0 measurement. This pen is calibrated, I should mention.